have Arnold Dublin Green, Chief Investment Officer at Codrus. Join me right here in the studio. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. At this point, some investors are making money, so that makes me happy.
Of course, I'm sure you're making money too.
Well, well, let's look at some of your recommendations at this point, because it kind of gives a pointer, to some investors that maybe don't know how to do their own research. At this point, I'm trying to look for direction. The latest issue there, see for the banks, Access Core, that's a buy. GTCO, hold. Talk to me about what you're seeing with financial services.
Okay, I think the best way for me is to sort of start from the beginning. Right, and I'll talk through everything as much as I can. So I'm a macro investor. So what that generally means is I will take a look at the world, or take a look at Nigeria, a country. I will see where the country was, where the country is, and try to figure out where we think the country is going. And in that sense, when you look at Nigeria, Nigeria is a macro improvement story and a capital flows story. And I'll tell you what that means. That generally means macro is improved. The macroeconomic story is improving. So inflation has gone from high 30s to low 20s, as we've seen. FX liquidity is better, and the Naira is stabilizing. And we are currently still in a high interest rate environment, but we think that we will go into a low interest rate environment. So from that sense, now you have to go down to the stocks to see what is going to be affected by all this, what is going to rise or what is going to decline. So if I look at industrials, for example, let me start with industrials and I'll go into the banks. So industrials, for example, struggled with the FX liquidity and brewers. FX liquidity, high inflation environment, so spend, and a lot of the input costs from these companies were passed on to consumers. But what you're seeing now is huge. For example, the Nigeria Industrial Index, I think, is up 52% this year, and even higher over a year. This is because on the capital flow side, you're having foreign portfolio investors coming, but on the macro side, some of these guys are doing something interesting. Some of these guys, like your Guinness, some of the brewers, Nigerian breweries, international breweries, for example, did capital raise rights issue to help deleverage their finance, to reduce the finance cost by deleveraging. So you have, for example, Nigerian breweries Nigerian breweries finance cost went down about 92%. International breweries went from about 21 billion Naira finance cost to about a 1.9 billion finance cost. Guinness as well, Nestle. So you're having these stocks benefit from deleveraging. And then on the bank side, MPR being really high, yields being really high, OMO rates were high, treasury bills were high.
So the banks are making bank.
The banks are making bank. And also, with a lot of these banks, with the forbearance issue that we had, the central bank announced that caused a lot of these bank shares to go down. You have these banks turn around because these banks have come around saying, forbearance issue is no longer an issue, so we can now pay dividends. So you have GTCO was always okay with the forbearance issue, and you saw the rally massive from about 30 Naira last year to about 100 Naira this year, all-time highs that we've never seen. GTCO is sort of a hold for us right now because we've seen that huge rally. Not saying there's anything wrong with GTCO, but we're saying the rally's been it's been intense. So what you probably have is a rotation out of a GTCO into an underperformer, which one could argue is a Zenith perhaps, and also an Access Bank. So GTCO being a hold for us doesn't mean it's a hold on the fundamental side. It's just a hold because we've had this huge rally, and you're looking at underperformance. You're looking at the spread between GTCO and Zenith, which is widened, and the markets likes to play that spread. So it's almost like a pairs trade of sell GTCO buy Zenith, sell GTCO buy Access, but not from a fundamental perspective, just in a price action perspective. We can go into the telcos that also benefited.
That's an interesting story.
Yeah.
Especially for Airtel Africa.
Okay.
Definitely, I've seen other investment banks also talk about Airtel being a buy. Now with a target of maybe about 3 to about 4K. Okay. But I've also heard some investors complain about not being able to buy the Airtel Africa stock. Yeah. So that's a different story. Yeah. But how are you seeing the telco?
Yeah, so Airtel is the liquidity. Liquidity just means it's hard to get in, and once you're in, it can be quite hard to get out. But telcos in general have benefited from the change in macro that we're talking about, right? So the effects of liquidity issue you're seeing some of these telcos, especially the likes of MTN, with the devaluation, of the currency, they had a lot of obligations, dollar obligations. So what these guys have gone back is they've gone back to renegotiate their USD obligations into Naira, right? So it's just so they are, I don't want to say no longer get the effect of a weak currency, but they've sort of protected themselves from whatever the Naira dollar does. But regardless, we still see the Naira stabilizing. Remember, I talked about Nigeria being a macro story and a capital flow story. So if you look at the capital flows for Nigeria, for the Naira, Q4 2024 to Q1 2025 is about a 10.9% increase in capital flows, about $5.6 billion, and $5.2 billion, which is about 92%, 93% of that is foreign portfolio investors. Right, so you're seeing foreign portfolio investors, and just to give you a bit of a picture, 2022 foreign portfolio investors and 2023 foreign portfolio investors was about $3.5 billion, and in Q1 this year it was $5.2 billion. So you're seeing in one quarter it's gone massively above 2022, 2023. So that saying that you're seeing this foreign portfolio investments or foreign portfolio advantage coming to the equity market as well, and we think that will continue till the end of the year.
All right, we'll definitely keep watching, but thank you so much. It was great having this conversation with you, because we need direction.
Yes, of course.
Get that cash, into. Thank you so much, Arnold Dolphin Green, Chief Investment Officer, Codrus. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Thank you.